If you'd like to get this and or any other Safari Ltd product, make sure to head over to www.safariltd.com and use the promo code KikiandCoffee at checkout, or use the link provided in the description to not only save 15% off of your next order, but you will also be financially supporting myself and the channel. So without further ado, what is up guys, it is KikiZilla101 here yet again. Today we're going to be reviewing the brand new for 2020 Safari Ltd Edmontosaurus Regalis. It's technically not labeled a Regalis, but it is a Edmontosaurus Regalis. It's just, I guess you could just call it Edmontosaurus. Now this figure was kindly sent over to me by Safari Ltd themselves with the hashtag HowiSafari campaign, so I want to send over a huge thank you for sending this out to be reviewed on the channel. Now without further ado, let's get into the review of this figure. So now, first off, I want to clarify that this was one of my lesser favorite figures from this year, but my friend Spino Dude, I have to credit him. He got this one in person and he told me that it was really great. He kept trying to push me to get this one. He's the reason why I was suggesting Safari maybe send this one out to me so I could check it out, and I am so pleased that I got it in person because it looks way better than I thought it would. I actually really like the colors in particular. There's this really nice fiery orange across the center of the body here. I think it's coming out okay on camera. I really would like it to be a little bit more vibrant because it looks a little bit more saturated in person, but I don't want to synthetically saturate the video because that would just probably alter way too much. And so, but just keep in mind, this is actually more saturated in person, looks a lot better, I think. And this is a little bit more pinkish on the head. But just in general, the appearance looks a lot better to me in person than I thought it would. Now, I still have quite a few issues with this figure, which we'll get to cross over with it, but I do want to just clarify that I'm actually really impressed with this one, and I do actually quite like it, and I'm happy I got a hold of it. I think it's going to make a nice addition to the Hell Creek formation collection, which is really cool, because I think Safari's doing a great job with these. Now, first off, the biggest thing that stood out to me when I first saw this figure that I didn't care for is its spine. Now, hadrosaurs in general do have very tall neural spines across all their vertebrae, down the entire spinal cord of their body. Just in general, hadrosaurs had a very tall peak of their back, and their tails were very tall and not so wide, but just really tall. Now this one in particular, it looks like they were attempting to do that here, but it's right above the hips right here. You can definitely feel it on the figure. The hips are right here, and it's barely raised at all. It should definitely be higher above the hips. Now it is the least high above the hips, so that part is correct to the actual skeleton of the animal, but it definitely should be more raised here. So I feel like there should be more of a hump towards the center, and it definitely looks a little better in hand, but that definitely is still an accuracy issue that it definitely should have a more lifted spine across the entire animal rather than this. Another thing that I have noticed about this guy is that the tail is too short. I scaled this one up to Scott Hartman's most recent, yeah, I think it was Scott Hartman's most recent Edmontosaurus Regalis. It might have been someone else's if I'm falsely crediting that. But there was a really nice skeletal where I actually noticed that there was like quite a bit of tail missing at the end, and it's way thinner towards the end, and there should be a lot more of a gradual bulk to the base of the tail, like from right here, from where the pubic bone is. This should just like come out like straight like that, and then it should taper off really quickly into a really thin tail. So just in general, this is just too bulky and stubby for Edmontosaurus's tail. In general, also, you have the issue of just being very bulky here. I like that they're trying to add in that cauda femoralis longus muscle on the tail here. However, it's just done too bulky here. It goes too far. The base of the tail should be the bulkiest, and I think this is okay, even though it probably should be a little bit smaller. This is generally okay, but around here is where it should get really thin. It should taper off really quickly and then be very super thin. Like about right here is probably the thickness it should have right about here, because like the vertebral ribs, or the transverse processes, which are the horizontal extensions on the tail vertebrae, those are very small even at the base, but they're basically non-existent through the rest of the tail. So that would have meant that there was basically very little muscle here and would have been very thin, while there was more muscle at the base of the tail. So they had very stiff tails, and we already knew that about Hadrosaurus. So just in general, this is a more outdated reconstruction of a tail, and just also just too short in general. So I would like to see them more accurately reconstruct the tail on this guy, but like I think they did a great job on their Gripposaurus before. I think it's from 2014. The Safari Gripposaurus? I'm not sure. Maybe no, it's 2013, I think. The Safari LCD Gripposaurus does a great job at demonstrating the shape of a hadrosaurid tail. I think this one's just a little bit misguided, unfortunately. Yeah, it probably is a little bit too bendy, because in general, the end of the tail should be pretty stiff. This isn't really that bad, but I'm just saying, in general, maybe it should be a little bit stiffer, but it's really not bad. It's just a minor critique and just a little thing that I noticed. Oh yeah, and then both of these feet here, are like twisted inwards. This is something I noticed on their like Monolophosaurus and some of their older models. Like the feet would actually get it twisted in. I don't know if this is like a product of the molding process, but basically like you can see this foot is tilted in and that one's tilted in. That just like wouldn't be possible for dinosaurs. Like they maybe could have tilted their foot a little bit outwards, but not inwards. And just in general, they didn't walk like that. We have a lot of trackways from hadrosaurs and other ornithopods in general, and they just definitely did not tilt their feet inwards, and it just looks kind of weird. It looks like they're twisting their legs, so wish that like you can see there, that both the feet are tilted inwards, and that's just, I wish that wasn't the case, but it almost looks like a Dimetrodon or something, like waddling from the side. It just doesn't quite look right for a bipedal hadrosaur. Yes, it is quadrupedal here, but they could definitely walk bipedally. We have trackways proving that. But there is like some slight awkwardness I've noticed with the pose here. Like this one just looks really stiff. This limb looks really stiff, and this one just kind of looks oddly extended. It's not bad. It's just like some slight stiffness to it. And then this one just looks like, I don't know, it doesn't really look like it's actually walking. It looks like it's posing, is the best way to put it. So I feel like there's just some slight offness to the pose, but it doesn't look as active as some of Safari's better stuff. It's not bad by any standards. It's really great, but it's, I guess it's not really great, but it's really good. It's just like, compared to some of Safari's other stuff, I feel like it's just a little bit lackluster in the pose, to be honest. The crest and integument are very well done. I actually looked into the comb, the crest comb here. I looked into the paper on it because I wanted to remind myself, because I always thought it honestly had like a different shape to it, but it looks like it's mostly just damage to the actual crest on the fossil. Some people do like interpreting it as being like a bigger lobe here at the top and the second lobe at the bottom, but even the people that published the paper reconstructed it with a more semicircle shape. So this one I'm going to just call good. Its positioning is also really well done. It also just looks pretty fleshy and very hump-like, like an actual comb. It actually has scales on it too, which is really great because it is technically a crest comb. Yeah, it's really nice to see that they added that and did it very well. And also they paid attention to the actual integument, because there's very oval-shaped scales covering the entire body of Edmontosaurus. Now these are probably too big, but then again, it's a figure, and I actually am fully accepting of that. I really like it. Yet again, we have some of that nice small detail on the legs, but it is a little bit smoothed over and gets lost in some areas. Unfortunately, it is a little bit more crisp in here, but you can see how it does kind of get smoothed over in a lot of spots, as you can see there on the bottom of the foot. It has a little bit of these more oval-like scales across the bottom, and then the whole face and comb are covered with the small scales yet again. Just really nice diversity and scalation, and I think it's really nice because most of these, like these smaller scales and stuff, are stamped scales that you see on a lot of Safari's figures, but these are completely new, I believe. I don't think I've seen these on any of Safari's sculpts before, so it's really nice to see them crack out some new scale shapes, and in particular, it's very adequate for this model in particular, because it's really nice and very accurate to the actual animal. So I really like that a lot about this one, is that they added in that integument shape, which is just perfect. Great job. One thing that just strikes me as odd is the patterns. There's just like a real inconsistency with the patterns, even amongst themselves. Like, so for starters, you have these stripes on the tail. You have this like these blotches with a bunch of spots in the midsection and limbs, and then these really thin stripes on the face. Which, by the way, I think these thin stripes were actually it was like a stamp almost, like maybe it was like some kind of cutout that they put over it that would make sure that the patterns would end up the same on each figure, because they're very finely cut and look really different from any of the other patterns I've seen on many Safari figures. So I really like that they're employing that. So the stamping can actually look really good. I think that's nice, but it does look more crisp than the rest of this, which all has a little bit more fading and is a little bit more blotchy. So it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the sculpt that well, but I do like the effort that was put there. And the bigger issues with these is, like, for instance, here on the neck, there's 2 stripes on this side. So you have stripes, and you have some spots and some blotches on this side of the neck. On the midsection, these ones, like, there's a really big black, like, spray wash over this whole thing that just darkens everything, and they're big blotchy spots. Then you have really thin spots on this one. Not too terrible, but it's definitely noticeable. This limb, you have stripes, or like little blotchy stripes with spots, and then stripes at the bottom. This leg is a complete black mass, which is just odd. This leg has the stripes here, spots, and then little semi-stripes with spots in there. Blotchy stripes, spots, more spots. No stripes there. The stripes here are very spaced out and well banded. They're a little bit tighter on this side and really blotchy here at the base. So just in general, you can see the real inconsistency with each side of it, which is odd. Also, the comb, one side is completely red, other side has black with red at the top. So I'm a little disappointed that it's so inconsistent on each side. I don't know why this figure in particular is so inconsistent. I think the only real consistent patterns is on the face with the stamping, and that's because it was a stamp, I believe, so I think it was pretty easy to do that. But it is a little unfortunate that the patterns are so inconsistent. But to be honest, most people don't even notice it. I didn't even notice it for the longest time until I just actually was paying more attention to the model. So it's really not that big of an issue, and it doesn't detract from it that much in person, to be honest. I really like this model. And in fact, like modern, like actual animals, they might actually end up having patterns like this that are kind of inconsistent on different parts of it. So that's always something you got to keep in mind. Oh, I do want to briefly mention that this figure is outdated, but it's not necessarily super inaccurate, because this figure came out just before the new study for the single hoof that was fossilized. We actually have a mummified foot from a Edmontosaurus with a single hoof that just covered the front of the foot, which is really cool, but this model couldn't have known that because it was made and released before that study even came out. So this one is completely in the okay for that one, but it's just a cool little fact to know about Edmontosaurus, which is pretty cool. But in general, this was a very accurate front hooves just in general to Hadrosaurs before we found that fossilized mummified hoof from Edmontosaurus itself. We also have this one weird inconsistency. The crest, or the beak is painted on the top jaw, but the bottom jaw of the beak isn't painted at all, which is a little unfortunate and just a little odd. You can definitely see that it's sculpted there, but it's just not painted, which is just really unfortunate. But in general, I don't think it really distracts much, and I didn't even notice it until I was, yet again, really heavily inspecting the sculpt just to, really take it in and try to review it for you guys. So that's something I just noticed that way. I think the eyes are quite nice. I really like the black outline around the eye, and then you have a really nice eye and pupil there. I think it looks really pretty. It's some of the better eyes on any safari figures I've seen. So I really like those eyes. The eyes are very well done, and a really nice wet look to those nostrils too. Look at that. That's really pretty. I think this looks a very lifelike, really pretty. I'm really happy to have Edmontosaurus. Edmontosaurus is one of my favorite hadrosaurs, and Regalis in particular is one of my favorites. And yes, just to specify, because I don't think I have specified yet, Edmontosaurus regalis is the species that's more northern and also has the this crest, the comb crest on its head. As far as we know, the other species do not have this crest, as far as we know. Now, I do want to bring up the last and most severe accuracy issue with this, because it's just something I haven't seen Safari do in a very, very, very long time. I think the last time I really can remember a proper figure including this was back in 2015, and that's actual shrink wrapping. Now, Safari's always been really good at making their models feel very fleshy, and it has all the skin and integument on there and stuff, and just doesn't look super shrink wrapped. And now shrink wrapping is when like the skin is like too tight to the animal, and like a bunch of muscle and bone is exposed and visible, like when you see ribs and stuff, and that's just not something you see on many animals unless they're literally deprived of food. On this model, it's very distinct. The entire upper jaw is very distinct here. You can see the cheekbone, you can see the beak there, the entire bit here right around the cheek is exposed. And it's just very unfortunate that there's actual shrink wrapping there. You can also see the actual outline of the orbit as well, as you can see this little crest ridge here, and then the little crack inside there. Now, Edmontosaurus definitely did have an elevated crest ridge, not crest ridge, eyebrow ridge, that's what I'm trying to say. But this is that is definitely shrink wrapping. That little line you're seeing up here, the eyes are definitely sunk into the model there. And it's not a major issue because honestly, most people have not mentioned it at all. I have not seen a single review that has actually mentioned the shrink wrapping on here. I didn't even notice it until I actually got it in hand. Actually, no, I noticed it on Bionicosaurus's review, who also has done a review for this for the #HowiSafari campaign, so you should go check out his review. He's a cool dude, does a great job with it. And Spino Dude also reviewed it, and he's the one who recommended me getting this, so you can check those out. I guess I never noticed because it just, generally, it looks okay from most angles, but something definitely looked off about the skull when I first saw it, but I thought it was just incorrectly shaped. The skull shape is perfect. The skull shape is well done, exquisitely done. It's just the shrink wrapping. That's what was throwing me off originally. I just never caught on to exactly what it was, and I guess in my head, I'm just like, yeah, Safari doesn't shrink wrap things anymore. But that is definitely a case of classic old shrink wrapping. It's not nearly as bad as some of the old Safari stuff, like their Utyrannus in particular, which we'll do a size comparison of right now, so bring it out. From 2015, you can see the shrink wrapping there. You can also see all of the fenestrae, which is just not something that should be depicted on an accurate animal. So there you go. It's a very large figure. Don't take my criticism of it too harshly, because I do actually really enjoy this figure in hand, but I do want to make you guys aware that there are some issues and inconsistencies with the model. So overall, this figure is getting a 7 out of 10 for me. Oh, and I quickly forgot, this is the Edmontosaurus with the rest of the Hell Creek stuff from Safari Ltd. Unfortunately, I don't have the Pachycephalosaurus, although that one scales the least well with the rest of these guys, so this is the really good, accurate to each other size range here. They all look amazing together. So I do want to thank Safari Ltd for sending this guy out to be reviewed on the channel yet again. One other brief thing that I wanted to mention is that I did have an issue with this red crest before on the pictures that I was seeing, because I just thought it kind of blended in with the rest of its body a little bit too much, and I felt like if it was like a blue, if it was a really nice blue, it would have stood out a little bit more and contrasted the body and drawn more attention to the crest, which I think was kind of a missed opportunity. And I'm actually thinking I might repaint the crest blue because I think it'd look a lot better. I'm curious to know what you guys think, but in general, in person, it looks a lot better. It doesn't look quite as like, it doesn't disappear as much in person than it did in the pictures that I was looking at of it. Now, I do want to quickly thank Safari Ltd for sending this guy out to be reviewed on the channel, and if you want to get this figure or any of the other Safari Ltd figures, including the Hell Creek stuff you're seeing on the screen here, you can get them at www.amazon.com/safari to use their Amazon store, or you can go to their website at www.safariltd.com and use the promo code Kiki and Coffee at checkout, which is no capitals and all one word. It's in the description as well as a link in there, and that will save you 15% off of your next order, and it will be financially supporting myself and the channel. So you not only get to save money, but you also get to support my channel in the process. So if you guys are interested in that, that's a really good way of going about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.